Get ready for the Dakota Pipeline. Okay, I hope you enjoyed a fantastic, albeit brutally cold, windy weekend. Those two things don't go well together. Up here in North Jersey, where I am, we had a wind chill of 16 below. Not fun. Been a long winter, and I hope you enjoyed. Good Super Bowl. A lot of people rooting for Seattle and Sam Darnold. Just goes to show you what scheme and system and coaching can do for you. He was seeing ghosts with the New York Jets, but Seattle pulls off a 29-13 win against the New England Patriots, who also showed that you can turn a team around in 1 year with coaching. Nonetheless, white smoke arises from the College of Knights. And Rutgers has chosen a DC. I'm a couple days behind on this. I've had some things to catch up on. And you've probably seen all the accounts and videos that you need to see on our new DC hire. And it's Travis Johansen from South Dakota, University of South Dakota. Now, I'm not going to lie. When I saw a glimpse of the headlines of Rutgers, DC, in South Dakota, I was like, "Oh, South Dakota State. All right, this is a good thing. This is a program that wins consistently, along with North Dakota State, and these are the kind of pipeline programs that you can draw from." Yeah, the FCS, but they win and they win consistently. But nonetheless, it was the University of South Dakota Coyotes. They South Dakota State, they're pretty good. I think they have 4 conference championships and 2 national titles in the past 10 years. But Travis is the head coach and former defensive coordinator for South Dakota. 1 year of head coaching experience at South Dakota. Not going to hold that against him because they did go 10-5, went to the playoffs, made it to the quarterfinals. So here is a snapshot of Travis's resume. Concordia, St. Paul. Where is that? Minnesota, I believe it's in Minneapolis. Division II, he was a defensive back from 2007 to 2010. He, defensive back coach, I should say. He did play football. He was a safety. It was a pretty good one, actually. He might have been second team all conference. He was the defensive coordinator there, 2011, 2012. Then he went to NAIA Grandview Valley in Iowa, 2013 to 2018. And then South Dakota University Coyotes as a defensive coordinator, 2019 to 2021, and they were pretty good. And he was defensive coordinator, assistant head coach, 2022, 2024. Their coach retires. He becomes the head coach, 2025 seasons. He got to the quarterfinals, lost to number 3 Montana. Montana lost in the championship game. So there is a solid resume there to talk about. So it's not the cutting edge outside. Well, I guess it's kind of the outside the box because it's outside the Shiano tree. And I know a lot of watchers of the program like that aspect of it. It's not the high profile, higher playoff coach in the Super Bowl. That's what we're waiting on. We kind of knew that wasn't going to be a thing. But it's an interesting choice, albeit kind of an underwhelming one, but it saves a rather uninspiring off-season. So let's go through it. Some pros and cons. Travis is a head coach, and when we see all the coaching movement in college and in the pros, and you look at the Jets and the Giants hiring coaches, and the Jets in particular, with Aaron Glenn saying he wants a coach that's going to be a head coach of the offense. I think we have that with Travis being the head coach of the defense. The Kirk Shiraka of the defense. He, as I said, as his 1 year head coach, 10-5 playoff team. That will allow Coach to now be the CEO of the team, as Kirk runs the offense, Travis runs the defense, and he can do what he needs to do, unrelated from generating revenue. And he doesn't have to call plays, don't have to worry about a first-time play caller. You know, what might happen with that? You don't have to worry about a retread defensive play caller who just, quite frankly, was just not any good. And you don't have to worry about drawing from an assistant pool that you're not quite sure if they're ready or not. So we got a guy that has seen all the different levels. And, you know, in case you haven't heard, we needed a competent DC, and I think that's what we have here. But there are some things that might present some challenges, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But nonetheless, we had to transform a historically bad Rutgers defense. FBS worse, giving up 7.6 yards per play. I mean, in 1.5 plays, you have a first down. Last in the Big Ten, 433 yards per game. Second to last in points per game, 31.8. So Travis, I know it's a low bar, but Travis is a good, solid defensive coordinator that should be able to improve upon those absolutely terrible statistics. Travis, now he was a second team all NSIC safety and team captain. So when you look at coaches that look to hire other, that look to add players, hire coaches, they like guys that have been captains. So he was a team captain before he was a DB coach at Concordia. And as a secondary coach, at Concordia, his pass defense was 14th in the country, and the defense, and you'll like this, was 12th in sacks, 34th overall in total defense. Total defense generally means total yards. That could be a barometer, but maybe not. So, who was it a couple years ago? Was it the Titans? They were like top 5, top 10 in total defense in yards, but in scoring defense, they were like bottom. It was just terrible. So at 6 seasons at Grandview University, that's in Iowa, at the NAIA level, the Vikings were 61-11 with 5 conference championships. So if you're going to pull from a feeder program, FCS program, it should be a good one. James Madison. They had 6 playoff appearances and a title in 2013 when they were 14-0. So he kind of knows, like Frank Signetti, how to win, although at a lower level. And they Grandview finished inside the top 15 all of his 6 seasons there, including 4 top 10 rankings. So he has a good experience with understanding what a winning program looks like. The defense in the undefeated season ranked 2nd nationally in scoring and total defense, 3rd in rushing defense, 1st in total sacks. We all should love that, knowing our challenges with sacks. And during his time there, the Vikings wound up 61-13. So that part of it is really good. When he comes to South Dakota, their defense was ranked 114th in the nation. That's Rutgers level bad. And he got them to become number 35 overall. It's top 25 in 2023 and 2024 before he took over as head coach. So you can see the incremental progress. That's what you want to see. Someone who can be methodical and make progress and take the next step. And despite, coaching at the level he coaches at, he's had 16 players go into the NFL. So, if there's a lot of eyes on North Dakota State, South Dakota State, they're going to be in that marketplace, and they see guys that he's developed, they're getting drafted. And the most recent guy was Miles Harden, cornerback, drafted by the Cleveland Browns in 2024. Now, apparently, we were all talking about how people don't want to come to Rutgers. It's Schiano's tough to work for. Maybe the money's not there. Maybe the competitiveness is not there. Do we want to work in New Jersey? And there's the New Jersey tax. But apparently there was a lot of interest from Power 4 and NFL programs. Now, I don't know if that's a marketing stunt pulled off to make it look like Rutgers isn't this sad sack program that's struggling to find a defensive coordinator in the Big Ten. Nonetheless, despite all of that, in his time at South Dakota, Travis had a top 5 FCS defense. So, had Defensive Players of the Year. Brock Morgensen, McQueese Grace in 2024. Brock was 2023. And this is a guy that the Knight Report was talking about, and just kind of liked it. I like to bring up his name, and his name is Mikey Munn, second-team All-American defensive back. I think he might have 1 year of eligibility left, so we'll see what happens with that. If there's any pipeline from South Dakota to New Jersey. That being said, let's go through some. That's the 30,000-foot view and snapshot. Let's go through some pros and some cons. So he's had success as a position coach in the secondary, and defensive coordinator and head coach. But he also checks the box from being a young up-and-comer. He's only 41, so he's still on his upward trajectory. He's on that ladder. Now, that means if he does well, he's probably going to move on in a couple of years. But we need to stabilize the ship right now. In his 11 seasons as a defensive coordinator at Grandview and South Dakota, 8 of his seasons have ranked in the top 25. So, if we would ever ranked top 25 in 8 out of 11 seasons, we'd be building statues. We talked about the scoring defense, yards, total defense. But I also like, in his stops, he has shown methodical, incremental progress, whether it being from the program that he was moving on to, the steps that his defenses took. Sometimes in this world of player and coach movement, guys are erratic. They go here for 1 year, go there for 1 year. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense. So his incremental progress, making improvement, getting the job done is something that I kind of like to see. A lot of criticism about Rob Smith. 20 years ago he was okay, and then he came back and he wasn't okay, and then he became an analyst, and he was bouncing around and came back to Rutgers because that's what we knew. There's none of that here. So I like the fact that he's younger, and has made incremental, methodical progress like that. One interesting note is that, and I mentioned this earlier, is that he is outside the Schiano tree. So for a lot of people like that, they wanted to see us go outside who Greg Schiano knows. Quite frankly, that's just how coaching works. And by the way, that's how it works in the real world. So, if we're expanding our recruiting footprint and expanding our portal footprint, we should be expanding our coaching footprint. So it's good to see that we're expanding our horizons. And, allegedly, Travis has been getting some looks from a lot of people. So we'll see how that all shakes out. The other thing that should be a good thing for us. Coming from a kind of feeder conference program is the manageable salary. Now, yes, coaches, in the NFL, they always like to say coaches don't have a salary cap. But nonetheless, he should be, it's guesstimating he'll be making around a 1.1 million a year, which is less than Rob Smith and Zach Sparber made combined, which is 1.6 million a year. So in an NIL revenue sharing, everybody chasing the bag, conferences realigning to chase the advertising revenue. There's a guy that represents some pretty good value. And oh yeah, no coordinators. So that's actually, I kind of like that. If you have two coordinators, you have no coordinators. All right, so let's get on to some cons. All right, so some of the cons. We've all talked about this, and it's the process. 64 days. It took us 64 days to find a defensive coordinator when everybody was filling their needs pretty quickly. Did we miss targets? Was Schiano being too fussy? Was it an undesirable job? Tough working for Greg Schiano. It is Travis kind of a fallback option. Not only are our portal guys coming from feeder lower programs, but it seems that's where we're going for our coaches now, and you have to be really good at identifying talent if it's going to work out. So we need to start drawing, unless you're Frank Signetti and James Madison and you have that infrastructure, we need to start drawing from the Power 4 pool. And along those lines, the Northern Sun, NAIA, and Missouri Valley Conference, they're not the Big Ten. It's not an accident that our best coordinators, position coaches, past few years were Kirk Shiraka and Flats. They were established coaches from legitimate programs that were able to implement their systems. And yes, were they considered the young, hot scheme X's and O coordinators? No, these were guys that knew what they were doing. And when you know what you're doing and you come from legitimate programs, you're bound to have some success. Now, I would have felt better if it was like, South Dakota State. But we'll see if Travis can take the next step on the East Coast, despite being, regionally limited. All of his experience was kind of Minnesota, Iowa. By the way, not unlike Chris Ash. With Iowa State, Drake, I think he got some time at Wisconsin, all before getting to Ohio State. Now, I was for the Chris Ash hire. If you're coming from Ohio State as an assistant head coach, assistant DC, whatever he was, that's always a good thing. Didn't work out, but I feel if you're kind of limited in your scope, that may be a problem for you, especially at a place like Rutgers, New York, Philly market, which is a challenge to develop, FBS college football. That being said, when we talk about Travis's experience and the geography where he comes from, can he develop a recruiting pipeline? Now, we're not big in the Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa pipeline. Can he bring some of that talent? Now, at South Dakota, he had a lot of unrated recruits. Now, I've talked about this a lot. So did James Madison. 8 of James Madison's starters were 0-star recruits. 8. 1 4-star recruit, no 5-star recruits. That being said, James Madison, Signetti, they were an anomaly. Will he be able to help expand our recruiting footprint to that part of the country? We'll find out. Haven't really seen the evidence yet, but we'll see how that shakes out. it's a low bar to be able to improve, especially defensively, to find guys that could fit what it is that we want to do. So there are some pros, there are some cons to Travis Johansen's hiring. I think overall, Mike from the Night Report, boy, I wish I had him as my professors at Rutgers back in the day. He gave it an A minus grade, but I think he felt because it was this late in the game to get this quality of a coach that deserved that kind of grade. But I'm thinking overall, it's probably a B minus. We need to start drawing the type of talent from Power Four programs that understand the marketplace. It's a challenge here at Rutgers and in New Jersey. So I give it a B minus. Nothing wrong with that. We'll see how it shakes out. We wish Travis all the luck. All right, we have a lot of news to talk about. We got football, basketball, and wrestling. And yes, we lost to Nebraska in basketball at the rack. No surprise there. But we beat the spread. We were 12.5-point underdog. We lose by 12. We've covered 6 out of the last 8 games. So, yeah, I guess that's a positive. Negative is we lost 7 games in a row. Won't get bogged down into breaking things down because when we get onto losing streaks like this, it's just not fun. It's like, what are we analyzing here? Going through the same issues game after game. Nebraska was coming off the back-to-back top 5 losses against Michigan and Illinois. You know there was no way they were going to lose. Nebraska in basketball, 21-2, 10-2 in conference. We are now 9-15, 2-11 in conference. And the thing about this game, if you looked at the box score, you'd be like, wow, this is a pretty even game. You couldn't glean much out of the box score other than the one thing that jumped out was the turnovers, points off turnovers, because statistically, we're about even. We got off to a slow start, never really threatened. You never really felt like we were going to get back in it like we did against USC. The distribution of points and production was kind of uneven. Defense, again, was bad. Nebraska guards and their wings accounted for 40 points. Nebraska's, their Twin Towers, their Houston version of Twin Towers, Bayou Tunzel and Mast combined for 30 points, 26 from Mast, and they had 4 starters in double figures. So, once again, we can't play pickleball and defend the way that we want to defend. I almost wish we could play ugly and gritty, but we're not. Neither bench was productive. Nebraska had 10 points off the bench. We had 12. We got down as much as 20 points in this game. We got it down to 10 points with a few minutes left in the game, but you never got the sense that, we were going to pull off a USC kind of game. We led, I think, for 1 minute early on. And another tale of 2 halves. We had 27, tale of 2 teams, tale of 2 cities. We had 27 points in the first half, falling behind 41-27. But then Nebraska goes on an 11-3 run in the second half, and we would never catch up. So let's talk about production. We were led by none other than Tariq Francis, who continues to be productive in the Big 10, much to the surprise of many. 16 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, high volume shooting. That's who he is. 6 of 16, 2 of 7 from 3, 2 for 2 from the free throw line. That's 3 or 4 games in a row where he hasn't missed a free throw, and now he's officially in Cam Spencer territory at 89%. Just love that. Caden Powers starting to break out. I've loved Caden Powers since the beginning. I thought he can be our legitimate two guard. He's getting more efficient, getting better at not just being a volume J. Mike and Tariq Francis kind of volume shooter. He was 6 for 11, 2 for 5 from 3. Darren Buchanan had a Darren Buchanan kind of game. 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Harun Zeno played 37 minutes, had 9 points. Dylan Grant, 7 points, 2 rebounds, and assists. Ogboli and Dort, again, a consistent problem, not getting much production out of the 5 position. We're going to have to solve that next year for sure. Ogboli was 2 points, 6 rebounds in 19 minutes, and Dort had 0 in the box score in 11 minutes. J. Mike, another erratic outing for him, up and down, 4 points in 24 minutes. And we had a Battlehouse signing. Go figure. 6 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist in 8 minutes. Pretty efficient stuff. So it's off against, we're going to be at the rack to play Maryland. Kind of a must-win game to salvage respectability for a down season. Beat Maryland, Penn State, Minnesota. If you're going to have a respectable season, you're going to have to beat one of those teams twice. Well, they only play Minnesota once, even though they had a big win against Michigan. So watch out for Minnesota. And speaking of Minnesota, I don't want to say a huge upset. Everybody's talking about this being a big upset. I don't see Minnesota wrestling being, I'm an OG. So Iowa's always been dominant back in the day. Oklahoma, Ohio, Penn State, obviously, Ohio State, Michigan. But Minnesota seems to be ranked, and I always felt, why can't we just be at least as good as Minnesota? So get that Minnesota thing going on now between Travis Kirk Shiraka and having to compete against them in wrestling. But number 17 wrestling, who I've said is actually the best, most consistent program at Rutgers, always wind up being top 12, 15, 20. Unfortunately, we're in the Big Ten. Shock. I don't want to say shock. They beat number 6 Minnesota 23-15. First time we've beaten Minnesota in 8 attempts, which I wouldn't have really. I would have thought there might have been some wins in there against Minnesota, but I guess not. We won 6 matches, 2 by major decision and 1 pin. And so Aiden Smith kicks it off at 125 with a top 10 win over Joe Volk, 7-2. Dylan Shalva gets a major decision win at 133. Andrew Clark gets a top 17 win at 149. Anthony White at 157 gets a top 19 win. Lenny Pinto at 174 gets a major decision and a top 25, top 24 win. And the big match was at 197 with Michigan State transfer Remy Cotton with a top 25 win in extra time. So that was the big match that set everybody off and made it really exciting. It's really hard to believe that Rutgers, something about Rutgers, we beat the teams that are bad, the ones that we probably should beat, even though we have some losses in there against those kind of teams. We were 0-60-1 against Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Minnesota. That's unbelievable. And it's been 10 years since we had a 17-16 win, against ranked top 5, top 10 Nebraska. And we came close against Ohio State last year. That was a 17-16 loss. And we lost by 1 point to number 12, Illinois, this year. Again, Illinois. I mean, these are teams if we're going to be very good, we should beat the Illinois of the world. And quite frankly, Ohio State. But Minnesota, without Gable Stevenson, who is, just a stud heavyweight and Olympian, we closed this one out, something we haven't been able to do in recent years. So we go off to 4-6 Michigan State. It should be a win. And hopefully we finish 12-5, 5-3 in conference before it's off to Penn State, Happy Valley for the Big Ten championships. So arrow up for Rutgers wrestling and Rutgers football coaching. We'll see how it works out with Travis Johansen. Hoops, need to get 5 wins. I don't care if you need to beat Maryland and Penn State twice. Let's get 5 wins in there. 6 out of the last 7 games, frankly, are kind of winnable. We're in that bottom quadrant of the Big Ten, and all these teams are not very good, so why not us? So let's go. Let's get going. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. It won't be as frigid. It's kind of going to be nearing normal winter temperatures for this time of year. Nonetheless, everybody have a good week, and we'll see you the next time.